All right, everyone, welcome to this virtual summit, our first summit of the new year, 2024. And uh, we're in for a real treat today. We have some great speakers. And so let's go ahead and get started with our first speaker, Walt Carter. Walt has more than 25 years in technology leadership roles. Walt specializes in change leadership and technology innovation. Prior to joining Homestar Financial Corporation as Chief Digital Officer and CIO in March of 2018, Walt and his team implemented technology changes for primary capital mortgage to drive 205% growth in origination volume in just over 2 years. He won the President's Award for his leadership on their largest commercial project. Walt was named CIO of the Year in 2014 by Georgia CIO Leadership Association, and more recently has been named to the Constellation Research Business Transformation 150 for 2020, and received a fourth nomination for CIO of the Year in Georgia. His book on change leadership, We Can't Stand Here, is an international bestseller. So we want to welcome Walt Carter. Take it away, Walt.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys today. And if you don't mind, I'm gonna feature a few slides from my book. So let me see if I can share a screen here real quick, and we'll get this thing rocking and rolling. Um, slide beginning, and let's see, where's my Zoom meeting? Let's share a screen. And you guys let me know when you can see this. Beautiful. Is everybody able to see that? Thumbs up? Okay, awesome. Thank you,
Yep.
guys. So I spent the last 43 years of my life trying to help companies implement technology and really try to help move the ball down the field as far as growth goes. And you heard from the introduction from Brian that I've been somewhat successful at that. And I've been recognized as one of the few guys out there that has actually completed several successful digital transformations. So I'm going to take you through, part of a much bigger presentation today, but just a sliver of it, give you a taste. Hope it's something that is meaningful to you. If it is, give me a thumbs up in the comments as we go, and in the chat. And let's go ahead and talk about change leadership.
से ठंडा पानी डालो इधर से बिल्कुल
I beg your pardon? So leadership is actually a team sport. It's not an individual thing. It really is context specific, guys, and it has to do with several elements. And what you see in my book here is a focus on how to actually get change done by leveraging that great relationship that you have with key people. And also, again, you got to know where you're going. Why are you going there? What are you trying to accomplish? How will you know when you're done and that you've arrived? Those are really probably the most important things about change leadership. But then beyond the vision of what it's going to look like is, how do we control this? How do we get the right people on our crew? And are all of them going to be really, really experienced, or are we going to have a handful of interns or brand new people? I found that casting off and starting your program or your change, there needs to be some kind of ceremony that anchors in for people some key emotions and helps them get through the tough times later. Connecting your team members to each other, connecting your team members to the mission. Those are vital parts of what we're going to talk about. Communication is obviously the secret code for how you do real leadership. It's got to be communicated and it's got to be understood and received on the other side. Collaboration, something we talk a lot about, but we don't really teach it well. Most of us have these horrible memories of group projects that we did together in school. And again, most of the time, those are, in fact, horrible memories, not one that we look back fondly on. And it's because we don't really do collaboration well, to be honest with you. And then the thing that we probably do the least well of all in corporate America is celebrate our victories or celebrate a good try. So let me just kind of keep driving here because I know Brian said we're on a tight schedule. Most change projects actually wind up looking like this ship on its side on the rocks. They don't do well. The number that we get reported to us all the time is 70% or higher of transformations fail. And I think I've got some clues on why that is. Um, Here's a cool slide that kind of gives you some indicator. 50 reasons not to change. This is too ambitious. I don't think my boss is going to like it. It's too expensive. This is someone else's responsibility, not my job. We're doing okay as it is. Why do we need to change? This will never fly upstairs. It's too visionary. It won't work in my department, right? It might work in the rest of the company, but it won't work in my department. So you can see people dig in their heels, usually when they're forced to receive a change. Our human nature, by the way, is to react to any kind of force or manipulation with a negative response, i.e. resistance, right? So if you're trying to be a change leader, you got to love them into position. You cannot push them into position. Here's a lot of what's going on out there and why these things are going off the rails. A lot of times there's no ROI or ability to support an ROI story, a return on investment, return on information, return on labor. Understanding behavior and the impact of a new customer. That's probably the number one reason why most of these things don't go across the line, is because we haven't ever gone to our customer and asked, what do you want from us? It's surprising. It's actually shocking how many times you find out that people did not go and talk to their customers to find out what their customers really wanted. The rest of this stuff is pretty straightforward. And again, if you guys would like to see more of this and go through in more detail, just ping me and I'll give you some contact information at the end of the presentation today so that you can reach me. This is one of the best tools I've ever seen for leading change. It's called the Lippitt-Nostra framework, and it came out back in the 90s. And many of you may have seen this. It's all over the internet. If you just look for managing complex change, what you'll see here is that you need these elements: the vision, the skills, the incentives, the resources, the action plan. If any one of them is missing, for instance, down at the bottom, the vision is missing, then people are confused. If you don't have good skills, then people are anxious because they know they can't really do this. If you don't have the right incentives, people will resist you. They will fight you. If you don't have the right resources, i.e. the stuff that people need, that's just going to be frustration. And if you don't have a good action plan, it's going to result in a lot of false starts. I'm here to tell you that if any two of these are missing, you shouldn't even start. You're doomed. Your ship is not going anywhere. You probably won't get out of the bay. So a few years later, they introduced another block up here at the top called consensus. And I agree that getting consensus is really important, but if you wait for 100% consensus on anything, you will have waited too long to move. So I'm going to leave that there. This is a model from the U.S. Army Doctrine of Warfare from the early 80s. It's called a planning and leadership model. And if you start at the base of that solid black line and follow it around, the first thing that you notice is that all communication occurs in the mind of the listener. It doesn't matter what you say, it's really about what they heard. We define projects as definable, delegatable, achievable, and they're the key to entrepreneurial rather than bureaucratic behavior. Again, this came from the Army, guys. It's interesting, right? And they said the model is you got to listen first, learn from your customer, help them, show that you really do love them, and then lead. If you come in and try to lead first, you're doomed. You're not going to be able to be successful. There's a lot more here, but this model has made me a lot of money over the years, just like Lippitt-Nostra has. This is a very wild looking slide from a great book called The Four Disciplines of Execution. I highly recommend not only my book, but this book. Chris McChesney, Jim Hewling, and another son of Stephen Covey have put together what I think is the best action plan for how to actually get an executable change through your organization. And just really to simplify this slide, start with something that's widely important, your wildly important goal. Figure out what your leading indicators are of whether that progress is going to be made, so that you have opportunity to intervene before it goes way off the rails and is unsalvageable. Leading indicators are far more important than lagging indicators. Once you have outcomes, you can't turn around and go back and fix anything. And so the leading indicators are the most important part. You create that compelling scoreboard, make it a winnable game for your team, and then create a cadence of accountability. The best teams love accountability. The worst teams hate it. I'm going to stop there. Again, we can go into a lot more detail on this if you guys really want to dive in, but this is far and away the best book I've seen on how to actually get big change done in your organization. There's a guy over in Great Britain named Dave Snowden that back in the 1990s also introduced what he calls the Kinefin framework for managing change. And the main point here in this busy slide is understanding that you can't possibly know everything when you start out on something that's called a transformation. There's going to be a lot of unknowns at the beginning, and your team is going to have to learn through the doing in order to accomplish the objective of getting to the end. There's almost always problems that you don't know about that will occur along the line as you move through the change effort. You've got to be prepared to deal with not only your team's reluctance to embrace the chaos and the complex, but you've also got to be willing to communicate through that to your key stakeholders and to your boss, your president, your CEO, your board. All of them have to be very well aware that there are certain things that just frankly are not obvious. They're not even just simply complicated. They're really complex and or they're chaotic. And that happens on every big change initiative that I've been a part of over the last 43 years. Again, there's a lot more information available from the Kinefin group. They're just wonderful. Communications. I mean, we've known in the military, and by the way, I am a former Air Force captain that spent a lot of time working on nuclear missiles and running World War III scenarios with the president and the National Command Authority from an airborne survivable platform is what they called it, called Looking Glass. And one of the things that we focus on intensely in the military is leaders at every level that understand the commander's intent, leaders at every level that understand the commander's intent and know how to communicate with each other that is context specific, i.e., if we need to be quiet, we got hand signals, right? If we can yell at each other, then we can issue commands. But if we can only see each other, we've got flags. And guys, we've had all of this stuff for years and years and years. You may also notice that we use drums for cadence. We use cadence calls as we're jogging together. We use bugles and trumpets and instruments. We communicate in a lot of ways that, frankly, most corporations don't use. There's a hint there. I'm going to stop and keep moving. Lastly, in the age of AI, right, as we're more and more concerned about the intrusion of artificial or augmented intelligence into our work life, what does it mean to be human? And how do you keep yourself from being replaced by the machine in that context? And guys, our ability to connect with each other, our ability to communicate with each other, our ability to learn together, our ability to sharpen each other's saws, those are kind of the critical things. You need to be thinking about, what do I have to know and do and change about my life in order to really be valuable to other humans in this world where we can automate just about everything. And so I really want you to think about that as we move forward. And then we're coming in for a landing here. So I told you I'd give you some contact information. You can get my book, which has a lot more information on it here, at wecan'tstayhere.net. On Twitter, I'm Walt74, and feel free to reach out to me that way. My speaker's website is waltcarter.com. So if you're looking for more information on that, please, hit one of those sites. Let me end my slideshow and stop sharing here. The other thing I'd like to just let you guys know, I'm working on a new book The first one did so well, international #1 bestseller. Really proud of that. Um, I'm working on a book on how to implement leadership systems. In the military, we have a tremendously mature leadership system. In the rest of corporate America, as my experience has been since 1992, it's not so much, right? There are a handful of companies that really excel at that. But for most of us, we're kind of led to believe that leadership comes from the top down, from the heavens, and somehow or another, good things manifest. The truth is the opposite. That's why so much failure on transformation and change initiatives. It really does require leaders at every level that understand what the intent is. And so, guys, if you need a speaker, or you need somebody to come in and talk to your group, I'm always available. And for anybody that's part of Brian's group, I pay special attention. So again, feel free to reach out to me. Brian, I'm all done. Are there questions that anybody would like to ask, or comments, or wow, Walt, you really screwed that up bad? Yeah, that's fair. Great. I see that there are no questions, Brian. So it looks like I've successfully bought time for our original first speaker to take his rightful place.
Actually, I have a question, but it's probably a really off the wall question.
All
Yeah,
right.
you showed a graphic with all of the different military hand signals and stuff. Now, when you watch military movies, do they use those correctly?
Most of the time, yeah, they usually have
Okay.
a military advisor that's supposed to help them with that. There was a series on not too long ago starring Chris Pratt as a Navy SEAL. I think it was called Terminal List. And great book, by the way. The book's way better than the TV series as usual, but they did have military advisors, so almost all of those signals were the legit ones. But in a lot of other, the lower the budget, the less likely there's a military advisor, and the less likely there is a authentic signaling being used in the movie. Does that help?
Sure. And is it true also that a lot of times the uniforms don't have the proper insignia on them because they're not allowed to? Does that happen
Yeah.
in movies?
And again, what you'll see is if there's a budget enough for a military advisor, they'll hold the line on that pretty well, and they are pretty up to spec on the way that things are displayed. Um, Most of us that are ex-military, though, spend a lot of time laughing at the stuff that we see that represents what military life is like. It's really, most of it's really not authentic, to be honest with you guys.
So I didn't mean to get us off topic, but
No, that's quite
that's
all
my
right.
that's my ADHD brain, I guess.
Great.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions? If not, we'll go ahead and introduce our next speaker. Vicky Rude is a dynamic entrepreneur, life coach, and acclaimed author. She brings a unique blend of corporate prowess and spiritual wisdom to the forefront. With a rich background as a director at a national company, she seamlessly integrates her corporate sales acumen with her passion for personal development, guiding individuals and organizations toward unprecedented growth. Known for her empowering and joyful speaking style, Vicky is not just a speaker, but a seasoned storyteller. Drawing from her own journey of recovery and personal growth, she weaves narratives that resonate deeply with listeners. Whether delving into the intricacies of gratitude, courage, or the art of recovery, Vicky's talks inspire, uplift, and leave a lasting impact. As a trained improviser, she brings a sense of spontaneity and playfulness to her engagements, ensuring that each event is not only informative but also enjoyable, and an enjoyable exploration of the human spirit. Prepared to be energized and enlightened as Vicky shares her insights and personal freedom, spiritual wellness, and transformative power of mentorship. And I like that it says that she's a trained improviser, because that's what I have to do right now is improvise as we change the order of speakers. Anyway, so let's welcome Vicky to the stage, to the virtual stage.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am honored to be here, and I want to ask a question to get right off the bat. Who here this week has felt that they weren't heard in a conversation? If you could put a 1 in the chat or raise your hand, raise your regular hand. Yeah. Who here has been told that they weren't listening to someone? Raise your hand. Yes, right? It is, it's outrageous to me how much we don't realize what we're doing and where we are and the lack of presence that I still, as a trained improviser, as a director of business development, I am a great listener in some situations, and I can go off the charts. So today I'm going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to give you a quote from Simon Sinek. He's amazing. Listening is not the art of hearing the words spoken. It is the art of understanding the meaning behind the words. And my name is Vicky. I am a coach. I am a mom of a 20 and an 18-year-old. I am a member of a 12-step group, and I have learned in many strange places how to be a good listener. So what I want to share with you today, I was a salesperson before I even knew it. And I remember my dad, he used to sell light bulbs, and his name is Lyle. And he says, "Oh, Vicky, you need to be in sales." And I said, "No way, no how." I went to college to be a teacher in education. I was an elementary education teacher. And he would always tell me that I just need to be in sales. And I stumbled into it. And you know why? It's because I was a good listener. And here's what happened. I was working at a bar outside of Wrigley Field, and a friend of mine would come in, and he knew the owner, and we would chat. And finally, one day he asked me if I wanted to be a cold caller and pick up the phone and just make appointments for him. So I'm like, sure, I'll make some extra money. And within 2 weeks, I was promoted to an outside sales rep, and it was the year 2007. So if you all know, the economy was in the toilet then, but I was a bartender and I didn't really pay attention to that stuff. I didn't listen to that. And I was super successful because what I learned was all you have to do is show up and listen. And I became very successful. And if you, the same time I was doing that, I was learning improv. And I will tell you, I went to the same school that Tina Fey and Amy Poehler went to. Now, I am not on Saturday Night Live, but what they learned and what they taught me, and that whole school taught me, was there's one thing that I used to do that held me back from listening. And I want to ask you if it's something that you do. I always was very polite. So what I mean by that is I would listen to people, or I would wait to talk until it was my turn to talk. Raise your hand if you could relate to that. Right? And the other thing I would do is I would plan in my head what I was going to say. Does anybody do that? I know I do. And it is a habit. And it's a habit that can be broken. And I will share with you how I was able to do that and what you can do in this process of learning to be an artful listener. Because all people really want in this world is to be heard. All people want is to be seen and heard. That is one thing that I've learned. And what I'll tell you is when you're on stage, and if you aren't listening, and if you're being polite, it's the same thing as if you're a spotter. Have you ever spotted someone when they're lifting weights? So have you ever had that moment where you weren't paying attention and oh no, I got to get it off their chest? if you show up to a conversation and you make that person do all the heavy lifting, you're not participating. So the number one thing that has an impact on your listening is actually participating. And the only way you can participate is to hear what they are saying and what they're not saying. Can you relate? How many times have you been interrupted by the all-powerful smartphone? I'm guilty. We're all guilty. And what I'll tell you is when you're about to have a conversation with someone, be it work, be it in a sales position, be it with your friends, your kids, your partner, the best thing you can do is put that little phone, that little gadget in the other room. When my grandmother turned 70, Grammy Pat, when she turned 70, we had a parking, it was called cell phone parking, right? And we had a little sign that I found in Pinterest, and it said, let's give Grammy the gift of the present of our presence. And we played this game where you had a name on your back of famous or historical person, and you asked 20 questions. Now, I come from a big family, a loud family, and I will tell you that was by far the best family party I have ever attended. And it was simply because we put our phones away. So that brings me to my first point, which is the most important point of becoming a good listener and becoming an artist of listening. And that's set yourself up for success. Set yourself up for success. It's almost a habit to grab that phone and look and see if there's notifications, right? It's just something that we all do. When I was a salesperson, I worked for a service industry and we sold staffing. So I was a staffing service provider. Now that's a 24/7 job. So I was trained to always have my phone with me, right? And I would answer clients all the time. And what I'll tell you about that habit is, and that I learned from my kids, they were probably 10 and 12, was that I wasn't present at dinner. I wasn't showing up. And it was at that moment that I really decided, okay, how can I set myself up for success? And if that's you, it's okay. We're not wrong. This is just the nature of what we're experiencing in this world. So what can we do when we know we want to have a conversation with someone? We can set ourselves up for success. And we can do this as the speaker, and we can do this as the listener. And one of the biggest things that I learned in my 12-step program was asking people what they need from me. And when you do that, when you ask, what do you need? Because I don't know about you, raise your hand if you're a verbal processor, if you know what I mean. If you just need to dump it all, yeah, right? You just need to dump it out. And then for me, it's like a puzzle. I pick things out and I decide what matters. And the good listeners that are in my life, they help me by participating and being present in this conversation. They help me put it all together. And so when you are with someone, you can ask for what you need. But most importantly, when you are with someone, you ask them what they need. Give them the chance to speak it. And I'll tell you what, I've done this and it sometimes makes people uncomfortable. They are shocked because let's face it, listening is not something we're taught. In school, I remember when I was in 4th grade, talk about ADD, Brian. I was in 4th grade and I would break my pencil on purpose and I would make trash out of the paper so I could walk around the room. And I remember Mrs. Harris, she put me in the back of the room and said, "You are a social butterfly, Vicki. You need to sit down." And thank goodness today I have a son that's diagnosed ADD, and today he has accommodations, and they've shifted that a little bit in schools. But they still, even with those accommodations, we're meant to sit and listen and take information in instead of engage. And I don't know about you, but all the best learning I've done has been when I've been hands-on, when I've actually been in there doing it with the teacher, with the person, which is why improv was such a beautiful space to learn this skill. And it's so much fun because you know what they teach you in improv and in 12-step groups? Don't take everything too seriously. Be present, suit up, show up, be there with the person. Notice when there's a shift. Notice when the breathing changes, when something is happening that's different. When you're able to notice that and be your authentic self and say, hey, is this what you're saying? Asking for that clarity, saying back to them what's being said. We all know these things, but the intention to practice these things is really what's missing. And sometimes it's because we just don't have time. We're in a big rush to get to nowhere, right? And what I've learned, there was a year where I woke up, right? And it was New Year's, and I this was the first year I did an intention word instead of a resolution. And it really worked for me. My intention word was, I'm gonna mean what I say and say what I mean. And that is what taught me to be a better listener. Because when I did that, I felt heard. And when I felt heard, I also learned how to listen more. It's a two-way street. Communication and connection is what we all want. But when I am saying things that I think the other person wants me to hear, when I am when I am thinking about my defense, when I'm having a conversation, or when I am thinking about what smart thing can I say, I am not present to what the gift that other person is giving me. You know, in an improv scene, I can walk up to you and I could say, hey, Brian, we're in the hottest part of Antarctica I've ever been. I had no idea that they had a beach in Antarctica. Now, Brian could say, Antarctica only has snow. And then what does that do? It stops the conversation. And when you practice that, but then Brian could say, yeah, and you know what? I got this full body suit for us to do. And what I learned in improv was that as you add things, you can make Antarctica the most amazing place. And we can do that in our days if we don't take ourselves too seriously, if we don't have to defend ourselves, if we actively listen to the people that we care about, that we share our days with, whether it be at work, whether it be our clients, whether it be our partners, whether it be the human being that is checking you out at the supermarket. We can change this world. We can create something new by simply listening. So what I invite everyone here to do when they go out into the world today is, number one, be curious. Be curious, because there's always something that you can learn. Number two, be present. Be present, be eyes on the prize, right? Number three, be aware of what's happening around you. Be aware of others and be aware of yourself. Is something stirring in you? Say it. Be authentic. Be who you are. Because when you are who you are, you invite others to be who they are. And it becomes something beautiful. I feel very strongly about showing up as myself today because for so many years, I was this person that I thought you wanted me to be. And I don't know about you, but as a salesperson, how many of you have been, I'm sure you've had a smarmy salesperson in your life that tried to sell you something, right? You can smell it a mile away, right? But how about that person that just gets you? You can also smell authenticity a mile away. So if you are authentic, you will click. And you know what happens in our brains when we're actually connect? You know, you go to that party, think about that party, and you meet this person and you're like, I've known you for my whole life. You totally get me. That is actually something that happens in the brain. Oxytocin is emitted, serotonin. So when we are ourselves, unless we are ourselves, that doesn't happen. When we are our true authentic selves, that doesn't happen. So I don't know about you. I'm going to ask you if you're in, but who is in to listen a little more in this world today? Because I promise you we'll be happier and better in this world. Raise your hand if you're in. Beautiful. All right, Brian, thank you. That's what I got. I'm open for questions.
I got a question. My wife always complains I don't listen enough.
Uh-huh.
So I have, and I've seen that a lot with myself. I tend to also, because of course people have a lot on their mind, and they have their idea, and they want that idea to be heard, so they kind of jump in. I have a cousin like that. I can literally say 5 or 10 words in a half-hour conversation, and he's on the 10,000th word. And once you start, he jumps in and chops in and just goes and goes and goes. But I know that about him. So I know when he calls on the phone, I'm just going to sit there and listen. I'm pretty much his therapist in a way. Um, but I think since really listening to my wife a lot more has definitely helped our relationship for sure. Yeah. So that's, and now, just now you telling me that has clicked another reminder in my brain to make sure I listen to her even more.
Right. And I read something when I was when I've been doing this research, because I do a workshop, The Art of Listening. What I read was the mind. So the speaker can only speak about 125 words, right? That's how fast per minute, right? And the mind goes way faster than that. So what there is there's this empty space in our brain that we've already processed. Our mind, we're meaning maker machines, right? So we're already trying to process and be more efficient. Instead, I say be lazy. Be lazy. Go down the lazy river with your wife in a conversation and just go with the flow of it. And I
Yeah.
guarantee you it'll be so much more fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. No, good speech.
All right. If there's no one else, we will move on. Thanks so much, Vicky. Our next speaker is William Blake, and William is a remarkable dyslexic coach, celebrated best-selling author, and an inspiring speaker whose life story serves as a testament to the transformative power of embracing one's differences. Diagnosed with dyslexia at a young age, William has turned what many might perceive as a challenge into his unique superpower. As a prolific author, his books inspire with insights and strategies. A captivating speaker, he shares a journey of resilience and self-discovery, transcending dyslexia to universal themes of belief and passion. In his personal life, William is a devoted family man. Alongside his wife, he is actively involved in raising their 3 children. William's story is a beacon of hope, showing that the right mindset and challenge can be transformed into an extraordinary strength. All right, so William, the stage is yours.
Goodness, when you said that, I had this like skip in my heart of when you said raising my kids to be that way. And I'm like, I love kids. Kids are just so great. Brian, thank you for you and Walt. Thank you both for just one, helping me out with my technical what should we call it? Technical disability or whatever it is. I really appreciate you helping me out with that. And then, Nikki, I want to give you a quick shout out as well. That I was trying to do my whole laptop thing, get Zoom on my computer, get everything so perfect. And then you said, be present. And I thought, it's not about me. It's not about things being perfect. It's about what we can all do right now to learn from each other and what we can do to really just be there and enjoy the moment. So I just wanted to give you a quick shout out and say thank you so much for reminding me and humbling me that you guys are awesome, that you guys are everything about today. I am very excited because I want to share with you guys, I want to share with you my story. And I also want to share with you 3 lessons I learned from it. One of my favorite quotes is, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And as Brian said, my name's William Blake, and I have this lofty goal of being the next Tony Robbins. Now, I know that sounds crazy and is just so out there, but let me share with you a story of how I have confidence in the goal that I set. Way back into first grade, we're walking down the hall and the teacher had us go up against it as she walked into a classroom. Us being very curious, we peeked around the corner and saw a bunch of tables sitting there. One by one, the teacher filtered us into the room. When it was my turn, I walked up to this desk and there was this wonderful woman who handed me this piece of paper. She said, "I just want you to read it." So I took it and looked at it, and it was like giving a first grader the Wall Street Journal. No pictures, too many words, and a bunch of gibberish. But I started reading, and I read through it very slowly and stumbled over so many words. Luckily, I was able to finish it, and she sent me back to the classroom. I had no idea what was going on until the year after, where my parents came in, and the teacher told us that I was diagnosed with dyslexia. For those who don't know what dyslexia is, it really comes down to reading, speaking, spelling, and writing. And depending on the person, depends on the severity of it. For me, reading, speaking, and writing were the biggest problems. Through elementary, through middle, through high school, it was this challenge. In elementary school, all the kids thought it was contagious. Through middle school, I felt like I was a loner. It was very hard to make friends. And even in high school, when I had friends, I felt distant because I couldn't take the honor classes that they were taking. And this obstacle continued into college. About a year and a half into college, when I was switching from an accounting degree to business, I came across this statistic. And it's one of my favorite statistics, obviously, because it's part of my story. It said 95% of CEOs read 50 plus books a year. I thought it'd be pretty cool to be a CEO, but there was no way, it was impossible for a dyslexic who read maybe an average of 1 book a year to read 50. But what did seem realistic was about a book a month. So I got my little note card and wrote down 1 through 12. Went to my bookshelf, grabbed the first book I saw, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, great book, and started reading chapter 1. Months and months went by, and I just kept reading and reading. And I felt like I was on a religious mission because I was like, they hold their books and pamphlets with them. I was always carrying a book with me. June hit, and I wrote down the 12th book on my card. I was excited. I was so ecstatic. How in the world can a dyslexic read 12 books? And a thought came to my mind, what if I could do more? And so I still thought 50 was out there. But getting a little bit more confidence in myself, I said, I'll go for 40. I have 6 months left. 40 books seems like I can get there. That means 28 books. So I started reading and reading and reading. Told my friend about this, and he said, hey, have you heard about Audible? No, what's Audible? Oh, it's books with an audio form. And so he logged me into his account, and I started listening. I turned my car into a library. No more music, always listening to books. Continued through the next couple months, and at the end of November, I hit the 40 book mark. And I was still excited, I was still ecstatic, but there was just this massive peaceful feeling inside of satisfaction, knowing that I did something I had no idea I could do before. And I said, you want to know what? I have 1 month left. And that question came back to my mind. What if I could do more? And so I said, what if I did hit that 50? 10 more books in the month of December. I think I can do it. December 20th came. And I looked at my note card. And I had only read 3 books. Which means in the next 10 to 11 days, I needed to read 7 books. And for going to my in-laws and a bunch of family stuff as it was Christmas time and New Year's, how in the world is that going to happen? But I told myself I'm going to do my best, and I went forward. I read and I read and I listened, always had an earbud in my ear. Every night I would not watch videos and play games like I usually did for my night calm downs, but switched over to just trying to hit that 50 mark. December 31st came. And I had a moment to myself where I walked into a room and I looked at my note card. And as I looked down, there was the number 50. And right next to it was a blank space. How is it that for someone who really, like I said, only read an average of 1 book, could go to 12, could go to 40, could go to 49, trying to get that 50th? And I learned so much. I made so many new friends along the way. And wow, how many self-help books are out there? It was fantastic to have a mindset switch. But I still looked at this card and there's that blank space. And as I sat there, looking at this card, I reached my hand over, grabbed a pen, put up the card, and wrote the 50th book. It felt invigorating. That something that seemed impossible, I could now stand there and say, no, I'm possible. And continually since then, I've been able to read 60 plus books a year. But as I looked back into it, I thought, there must have been something. There must have been something that was in there, some lessons that I could take out, that I could apply to other goals, other visions that I want. And so as I dissected it, 3 lessons came out of it. And if you guys haven't been taking notes and have a pen and paper, why not, right? Take it out and start writing these. The first lesson I want to share with you is be a GPS. Now, this isn't an acronym like GPS. This is like the app on your phone. You open the maps on your phone, and whenever you need to go somewhere, it asks you 2 things. The first thing, everyone knows, where am I going? And so for us, that's what's my goal? What's my vision? What is that finish line that I'm trying to hit? Then it asks you a second thing, which most people have just automatic and most people don't know. Do you know what it is? It's where you're at right now. Which makes sense, right? Because if you know where you're going, but you don't know where you're at, that's like being in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean trying to go to a certain country, and you're like pedaling as fast as you can, but you're not going to go there. It's going to be like 1 in a 4 trillion chance to get there, right? So being able to figure out where you're going and where you're at will help to be able to create that path. And that was a lesson that I learned. I learned that having that lofty goal of 12, which went to 40 to 50, as well as wanting to be an author, as well as wanting to be a speaker, that having that end goal, then being truthful to myself, saying, right now, I need to be real and raw. I need to know about my health, my wealth, my mental, my emotional. I need to know about my social. I need to know about how I am spiritually. And taking all of that, then you're able to fill that gap in between. The second lesson that I learned is reverse engineer the plan. Whatever your goal that you have, reverse engineer it down to have actionable items. One of the clients that I work with, he had a goal of getting a girlfriend. And I said, awesome. So we reverse engineered it. Started with, okay, if you want to have a girlfriend, then you got to have a friend that's a girl. How do you have a friend that's a girl? Well, you kind of got to have a group of friends, right? That's where it starts. Awesome. How do you get that group of friends? Well, two things came out of it. The first one was you got to go places. You got to go to events to then have that group of friends. So boom, we'll put a pin in that. The second part was you got to start talking to your friends. And you got to start talking to girls. Reverse engineer that even further. And that divided into two things. The first thing was the skill of communication, the skill of talking. Boom, put a pin in that. And that's the second one was self-confidence, self-love. Being able to live a life, because I'm sure all the wonderful women in here and even the men, all of you know that a man who has a dream and is going for something is a lot more attractive than the one who's just sitting there doing nothing. At least that's what my wife says. And so, boom, that was the third thing. So just reverse engineering it from this client, we're able to figure out, one, you need to start going to events. Two, you need to start learning how to communicate. This is practicing the skill, which is great with going to events. And then third is self-love. Doing some meditation, being with yourself, taking walks, go out into nature, whatever it is, to be able to get what he wanted. And we're able to reverse engineer it. And that was the second one. So the first lesson was to be a GPS. The second one was to reverse engineer your goal. Then the third one, which is my personal favorite, is called the 2% rule. Now, the 2% rule is your goal, your ultimate goal is 100%. Once you reach it, that's 100% of the goal. The 2% is 2% action that you can take today to move towards your goal. So for me, when I was starting with the 12 books, my 2% action was walking to the bookshelf and grabbing a book, which might seem super simple, but if you really think about it, there's a lot of books out there. And trying to find the perfect book to read, just to have that first one, is difficult. So that 2% action to get me out of that comfort zone was go and grab a book, which was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Awesome. What's the next 2%? Next 2% was open it to chapter 1 and just start reading. Now, one thing that's always asked with this is, Willie, why in the world, why can't we focus on the 100%? Or why can't we focus on the 1%, right? Why does it have to be like 2%? Well, let me tell you, if you focus on the 1%, you hit analysis paralysis, which is basically where that's where the inability to have clarity, that's where overthinking happens. That's where it just seems so lofty that it seems impossible to hit. And so you don't even start trying. On the flip side, you have the 1%. If you focus on 1%, then you're not getting out of your comfort zone. And it doesn't create a fire within you to move. And so that's why I love 2%, is because it gets you that fire, it ignites that fire within you to move somewhere. And at the same time, it doesn't seem that much of a massive hurdle to take action on, and you can do it. And with these three things, I know that my client, he actually has a girlfriend now, like props to that guy, awesome. Another one of my clients went from working a job making 20K a year to now he was able to quit it and then make 100K. And even for myself, I went from reading 1 to 50, 60 books a year. I went from really having struggle writing to be a 3-time best-selling author. I went from someone who was shy and introverted, no confidence on stage, to be able to stand before you, talking to you today, sharing what I've learned, and hopefully you, when you apply it to your guys' life, that you'll get the goal that you're wanting to achieve. So here's my challenge for you. Implement these 3 lessons into your life and don't wait. Be a GPS, figure out where you're going and where you're at. Reverse engineer your goal so that you have specific things and have a specific like tree line to go to where you want to fill that gap. And then do 2% today. If you're wanting more courage, if you're wanting more confidence, you want to be a high performer in your industry, if you're wanting to be an expert and a master in your craft, I want you to show up today. And it doesn't have to be big, just 2% today. Because you're the hero in your life. And you have a story to be written. So let's start writing. I appreciate you guys letting me share my story and my lessons. I would love to hear any questions that you have. And if not, I'll turn it back over to Brian.
Real quick, William, do you have like contact information you want to share with everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to my website, williamblakelight, LIGHT.com, and you'll be able to find my link tree to all my socials. And all my socials are WilliamBlake_light.
All right. Does anyone else have a real quick question for William? If not, I'd just like to say I really liked hearing your story about coaching the young men on how to get a girlfriend and the way you approached it by taking it from, reverse engineering. I love that. That's awesome. I mean, and that we all can benefit from reverse engineering or working backwards to solve a problem. That's fantastic. Great.
Yeah, I wish I knew that when I was 16. I wish I had someone like that. But we always live and we always learn.
So true. Okay. Oh, Tracy. Tracy has a question.
I apologize. I just moved and empowered, and I do not have dyslexia, and I think we're all very unique and distinct. But I really appreciated sharing your journey from elementary and all the way through, and I really identified. You really personalize it to the audience. Thank you. Sorry for the misunderstanding with the question.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I really appreciate it. And it's not just dyslexic. It's all the challenge. We all have challenges. We all have problems. It's just our view on it. Are we going to sit back and let it hurt our life like it did my first 2 decades? Or are we going to be able to make it our superpower? That's really what it comes down to.
All right. Thanks again, William. We will move on now to our next speaker. Luana Parker is a dynamic and versatile host in the world of digital media. Her journey is marked by remarkable achievements and a passion for engaging with her audience. Luana's journey as a host began with the prestigious PSA monthly session, where she honed her skills under the guidance of Jason, making a significant impact with the professional community. So I'd like to say that PSA month that she's talking about, this that we're doing right now, the Public Speakers Association virtual summits. And Jason is my predecessor, so she worked a lot with him. Beyond that, she ventured into the world of podcast and internet TV, showcasing her ability to captivate and inform through different mediums. Her shows garnered attention for their insightful content and unique approach to storytelling. Currently, Luana is a vibrant host of Conversation with Luana, a popular hour-long live show on TikTok. Now, I didn't even know you could do TikTok for an hour. I thought it was like 1 minute. Anyway, here she continues to connect with her audience, sharing meaningful conversations and fostering a sense of community. Join Luana on her journey as she brings her charismatic presence and wealth of experience to every platform, leaving an indelible mark on those she encounters. All right, it's time for Luana to take the virtual stage.
Thank you so much, Jason, for that beautiful introduction.
Or Brian.
Wow. Brian, I'm sorry.
That's
Thinking about
okay.
Jason when you brought his name up. I just hope that I do live up to all that you put out there. Are any of you aware that there's about 80% of Americans who have considered writing a book? Well, it's estimated that only a small fraction, perhaps around 1 to 2% of those who aspire to write actually follow through and complete a significant writing project. I was among those for many, many years. The difference between myself and William is that William kind of always knew what he was going to do, and in his own way, he followed through. I always wanted to write, but I allowed all the negatives to get into my head. You know, you can't write. You don't know what to write about. Who's interested in what you have to say? You cannot fill 200 pages worth of words. So you might as well just give it up, forget it. It's not for you. The worst part was that when I heard those things, I added on to them. Well, you know, they're right. What do I know to write about? So years went by with me thinking about what I wanted to do and not doing it. Hi, my name is Dr. Luana Parker, and I've had the pleasure of working with some of the most incredible and inspiring women. My passion is to help other women who are looking to transform their lives, and I help them through the power of writing, because writing is so powerful. I commend you, William, for having 3 best-selling books. That's fantastic. And as I listen to Vicky talking about engaging and listening, that's something that I have been learning since I've been over on TikTok. It's important to hear what the people are asking me on there, because some of them really need your information, and they're being sincere when they're asking their question, because sometimes they're very vulnerable, personal things that they're asking, and you can't be glib. You have to give them an honest answer. So that means you got to pay attention. Now, I can also tell when there's someone who's just looking for attention too, because you do get a few of those. There is something magical that I have found when talking with people and putting pen to paper and allowing your thoughts and feelings and dreams to take shape. That's why I come in with individuals, because there are a number of people who want to write, but they're not sure how to get started. So together we explore those hidden passions and untold stories, and we try to bring them to life. It's not just about crafting words, it's about crafting your legacy. Take Napoleon Hill, for example. When he wrote that book, I'm sure he had no idea that Think and Grow Rich would be as relevant today as it was when he first printed. And here it is almost 100 years later, and people are still reading and talking about that book. For me, what made changes for me, it initially started in 1996 when I heard this voice in my head saying, I'm tired. I don't care what you think other people think about your writing. I want to write. And we are writing regardless. For the first time, I decided to listen to that little voice. I went to the local community college, found they had a creative writing class there. I took that class. I enjoyed it. They didn't have it the next semester, which I felt I desperately needed. But by then, we had the internet that was starting to come out and be very popular. However, it still took me a little while to actually get on there and look for some classes. And I finally found one, which I took. And I guess I was in there for almost a year when the instructor said he was going to have a contest. And he wanted each of us to write a 1,500 word story. He would take the best 10 and put them in an anthology. And I thought, oh, I can't do that. Those voices came back. I can't do that. I'm just be wasting my time. I would embarrass myself if I try to participate in this contest. But on the very last day, I turned in a story I had written. So about 3 or 4 weeks later, I was pleasantly surprised when I received the message that mine had been one of the stories selected to get into that book. I'm telling you, I walked around on cloud 9 for who knows how long, because that was a major, major turning point for me. Then I started writing, and again, I'm still not confident in myself, but at least I'm trying out there. I'm writing stuff. I've got a ton of stuff on my computer that I've done nothing with. Eventually, I'll get to those one day, as they say, one day. But the point of it is that I started writing, and I was pleased with myself. Like you, William, I was I was so excited because I was actually writing. And then when I would go back some weeks later and I'd look at what I'd written and I go, wow, did I write those words? Those came out of me. It was such a surprise. But I still wasn't trying to publish anything. What happened was a situation in with my husband. He got cancer, and I was feeling bad because I wanted to get another job. And at my age, people were just, and they weren't looking at me. I think they were thinking I might have a lot of health issues. And I thought if they just let me come in and they see I don't have any health problems, I'd make a good employee. But that didn't work, span out. And what turned out for me was that I got in a deep, deep depression. That depression caused me to start thinking things like, why am I here? What's my purpose? And from some hidden expanse in my head, it said, write this stuff down. And so I started writing, and I started writing, and I wrote. Now, a lot of it was whining, complaining, and oh, woe is me kind of stuff. But eventually I got to the things that were really hurting and bothering me, the things that made a difference. And after I finished that, I put it away. I felt better because it was like I had certainly released and I always say I let God know. For a change, I was open and just let everything out there. A few weeks later, when I went back and I read what I wrote, minus the whining stuff, and I realized I had a story here. I had a message that I could share with other people. But I needed to know how to get from where I was to where I needed to be. And I came up with 5 steps of things that I needed to do in order to make sure I was not in that spot where I had been, that I would not fall back into that spot. And I wrote those down. And again, later, looking at it, okay, now this could really be a book. And then I put in something what I thought, oh, this will be my secret sauce. So I put that in there too. I then decided this portion of this was going to be a book. I had it proofread, made the necessary corrections, and formatted the whole 9 yards, everything that needed to be done. And I had it published. Now, I've still got these negatives. I've got this book out there, but it took me about 2.5 months or so before I told anybody I had the book out there. And the thing of it is, once I let it out, I had a book out there, people bought the book. I was so surprised, and I received some compliments on the book, even some reviews. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. But then when I was looking through some things, for those of you who don't know, I lost my son several years ago, and he was in the military. And it wasn't anything to do with the military. It was actually a car accident, and which he died instantly. But when the military sent me his personal effects, in there was a journal I gave him when he started kindergarten, a journal that I had forgotten I even given to him, let alone the fact that he had been writing in it. And the great thing about that journal, while it hurt to go through it, it also was a blessing for me because I got to relive all those years and watch him grow up from this 5-year-old boy into a grown man who went into the military. And it was a real blessing for me because he had put words on paper. Not a lot. He was a boy. That wasn't his thing, but he had a few pictures and some words, and it made all the difference, and it made me feel so good. And that's what made me realize how important it is that we leave words for people, our family, to let them know our thoughts and feelings, to give them something for when we're no longer here. And that got me into journaling and creative writing, because I thought how important it is for each of us to share not just our stories, but a message. Listening to William's story, that was fantastic, because here he is able to help so many people who, like him, may have thought they can't do. And he has shown them, yes, you can. I did it. You can too. But if he had not decided to write and get out there and speak about it, no one would know. And those people who needed to hear from him would have continued on the same road they had been, thinking that they were less than. So I started talking to women, and I realized that every woman has a unique voice and story to share. And I say women, but this applies to men also. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing this through a memoir, a novel, or even a collection of poems. What I try to do is to guide you and support you and cheer you every step of the way, to let you know this is a journey, and it's filled with creativity, courage, and empowerment. I had a young woman who came to me. We still haven't figured out yet who told her about me. But she did find me. She joined my writing circle, and she let us know in there that she had been trying to write for years. In fact, she had a story she had started several years ago and had not finished. So she was hoping that by coming to join the group, that maybe she would finish that or another story. Well, I'm here to tell you, she not only finished that story, she has a second one that's ready to be published and has already started on her third one. All because she joined the group that helped support her in what she wanted to achieve, encouraged her to let her know that in this day and age, your story matters, and you don't have to wait for somebody to tell you whether you're good enough or not. And the story is a kind of a murder mystery, but she did a pretty good job on it. So by helping women articulate their experiences, their triumphs, and even their struggles, I'm privileged to be part of creating legacies that will resonate and inspire others. There is nothing quite like witnessing the transformation of an idea into a published work. Now, I have written since then, I have 2 other books that are on Amazon, and I'm very pleased to be able to say that I have another woman who wrote, she worked as a prison guard, and she has wrote a collection of poems based on her experience and the things that she witnessed as a security guard. I have still another young man, and he's over in Brazil, who had also wanted to write and felt that he couldn't and didn't have anything to write about. Well, I'm very pleased to let you know that he is currently working on a book. It is a story of his life, and he's not going to tell the whole story. He's going to pick certain things out that he feels are important to share, and that's what he will be writing about. So if this speaks to you, or if you feel any type of spark, I'd love to hear your story and explore how I can help you write the next chapter of your life. So let's create something that's truly beautiful and something that's lasting. Let's create your legacy. I'm going to put in the chat 2 prompts for those of you who say, well, I don't know how to get started, or I don't know what to write about. So I'll have 2 prompts in there that you can use, or it may trigger something in your mind as to what you could write. You don't have to use those, or you can change them around. It's strictly up to you how you use them. And it also have all my contact information. So I just want you to think about it and realize that there's somebody out there who needs to hear your story, the message that you have to share. And even if you only write for the benefit of your family, someone in them still may need to hear your story. If not now, maybe someone further down the line that you may never even have the opportunity to meet. But the words that you share will live on and be there to help them should they need them. I'm Dr. Luana Parker, and I help you tell your stories as only you can. Thank you, Brian, for that.
Thank you, Luana. Any questions?
Someone asked me about podcasting, so just reach out to me and we can talk about that. Okay.
Awesome. Well, we'll move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Norma Hollis, and she's a pioneer in speaking in the speaking industry, and holds the distinction of being the first Black woman to own a speaker bureau dedicated to Black speakers. Her groundbreaking work not only empowered Black speakers, but also facilitated their booking, fostering the growth of numerous talents. Today, Dr. Hollis continues her pioneering journey as a coach in the authenticity-focused coaching industry. Her expertise guides speakers to be genuine on stage and harness the power of authenticity as an integral part of their platform. With a legacy of breaking barriers and promoting authenticity, Dr. Norma Hollis remains a driving force in the world of speaking and coaching. All right, so let's give a round of applause, sir, to Dr. Norma Hollis. Take it away.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you, and it's great to be here with all of you. Dr. Luana, I'm proud of you. I remember meeting you a while ago, and you've really grown quite a bit. I was with PSA when it first started with Tanya Hoffman, maybe about a decade ago. So I'm glad to see it still going and bringing in so many great speakers. I'm delighted to have a chance to talk with you today. I'm going to talk to you about why it's so important to share your voice. It's so critical. When I owned my bureau, what I learned was that 99% of the people who came to me as a speaker, they all wanted to make a difference. They all wanted to make some change in the world. That's what speakers do. That's what we do. We're born for it. It pushes us. I've learned that there's 4 different types of speakers. There's informational speakers that give good information. There's motivational speakers that motivate you from the outside in to do something. There's inspirational that inspire you from the inside to take what you have and bring it out. and there's transformational, and those are people who change you at the time that they're speaking. And I'm hoping that in these few minutes that I'm going to have with you, that I can change some of your thinking and encourage you to really, 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 really share your message as often as possible. You know, there was a study that was done in 1972, and I was in the early childhood field, and I'm very familiar with this study because it was a study on the impact of violence of TV and how that impacted the world, how it impacted people. And the results of the study was that, yes, violence on TV definitely has an impact on human beings. And me and my naive said, see, it's not going to change TV, it's going to get better. Well, they did change TV. They put violence in cartoons and on and on and on. And I've talked to a lot of people recently. We've had conversations about computers. And I know in the early childhood field, in the late 80s and 90s, the children in the preschool programs changed. Rather than the calm, and those of you that are young don't know, all of us heard our grandparents talk about what life used to be like. Well, I'm one of those now that's talking about that. But I want to give you some facts that's going to encourage you to share your voice. Because in the 80s, when the computers came, that changed society again. So violence was one. In the 70s, they had that research because TV had just been out a couple decades ago. It was just impacting the world. And then in the 80s, we had computers. And I remember having a conversation one holiday with a 30 and a 36-year-old, and they were talking about how different they are in terms of their energy and how they live their life. And that was because of the computer influence. So now the computer influence, which started with these big computers and no one had one, and now we have one in our pocket and we don't even need phone without it. It's changed us from having to know addresses and phone numbers to having to push a button to know where to go and who to talk to. You don't have to remember anything. Everything you need is on that phone, so you don't have to think. And they don't teach much critical thinking in school. So the state of the world today is a world of violence everywhere. They say that the #1 cause of death for children is violence in schools, being shot in school. There's more chance of being shot in school than any other way of dying for a young person. And it's just going on and on. I remember the very first major shooting that I heard about was in Scotland back in the 90s. And I cried for weeks about that. I never understood why I was crying, but it was kind of a clarion call to what's about to happen in society. And so here we are now with a society that has great needs. Everywhere I go, I ask people, are they happy with society? And nobody says yes. Everybody says that there are challenges that have not been solved. And that's what speakers do. So now we have a convergence happening on society. If you look at it, there's on one hand, there's the whole societal movement towards artificial intelligence. Just like there was television, just like there was computers, and now there's artificial intelligence. And if you look historically to what's happened since television came in, and it was run by media who had certain objectives and agendas, who take such data about the influence of violence, and they bring more violence because it brings more money. So that's one thing to look at. Look at computers that came in. Computers helped us, they help us considerably, but it's gotten to the point now that they have crippled us in many ways because it's taken away our critical thinking. There's not a lot of critical thinking going on. And what the research says that people just want to be told what to do. That's what some speaker coaches will tell you. Just tell them what to do. Just tell them what, that's all, they'll do what you tell them to do. Well, what are you telling them? What are we telling them as society? What is your message? How are you attempting to change the world? Does it impact artificial intelligence? What does it impact? Now, on the other side of artificial intelligence, you have evolution of society from a more esoteric perspective, because they're saying the next frontier is consciousness. And some of you on this call are consciousness speakers. I can tell by hearing you and looking at you and the things that you do. So the consciousness is one. So you're going to have conflict in the future about the artificial intelligence with the computers and the television and the media, with consciousness telling us to do things differently. What consciousness is doing is bringing children into the world now with a whole new type of consciousness. I've seen children that are able to read at the age of 2. I'm doing a presentation for a Head Start program. I used to be a Head Start director, doing a presentation next month. And I was doing this research. I'm talking about children's gifts and talents and how they use their gifts and talents. And I came across this 2-year-old little boy who plays a minute and mommy says, read this word. He says, cheese. He says, alligator. He says, coconut. He's reading these words at age 2. And that's so phenomenal because reading is a left brain experience, which you have to be taught to do. But he wasn't taught. The parents didn't. He just picked this up somewhere. How does that happen? They have another picture of a little girl who's 2 years old on a skateboard and doing phenomenal things. 2 years old. She's got balance already. She's doing these things. They're coming into the world now with a better ability to address the issues that are in the world. So, but parents, unfortunately, are so caught up in what they're doing, making a living, that they often miss these gifts and talents. They miss the opportunity to help these children know who they are, to help these children be their authentic self, to help these children connect with the gifts and talents that they were given. Because like children go to preschool and they learn that they can draw and they can do it beautifully, or they can sing and they love it. And they come home and they sing as loud as they can. And what mommy says, hey, be quiet, go watch TV. I'm tired. I gotta cook dinner. And then the child loses some of themselves and loses their authenticity and loses their enthusiasm. So as speakers, you have the opportunity to help parents, to help children, to help leaders, to help corporate, to help anyone, whatever your target market is. You have a chance to take that market and make a difference, and make a difference and do something different. Help to open their consciousness, help them to see things differently, help them to see themselves differently. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Whatever you're doing is going to impact the future. It's going to make a difference. The world needs your voice. So some people tell you, well, how do I find my voice? What do I do with my voice? You just be authentic. And I know that's a word you hear a lot, but I have researched authenticity for over 40 years. And I have a deep, deep understanding of the dimensions that it takes to help you be authentic. And I would tell you, in case you're confused about it, you all were born with a unique set of natural gifts and talents. That's a clue for what you should be doing and what you should be speaking about. So if you have any confusion about what your message is to the world, it's easy. Track your life, track what you've been doing, track what you're good at, track what you love, track what comes easy for you, and then look in the mirror. And then you'll find out what your message is and who your message is for. It's just that simple. Don't make it complicated. And then go around the things that you've done. One of the things that I find that those of us that are creative, the speakers, the coaches, and others, is that we just keep living life. We have a new idea every day, or at least every week, or maybe a month. We're constantly chasing a new idea. But success in life has a lot of linear issues with it. People who have become most successful, who are creative, have a linear partner, because marketing is the greatest challenge that we have as creative people. Because we have a new idea, we have a new way of doing the same thing every day, and we want to do it new. You know, my daughter that I raised, my niece that I raised as my daughter, she was trying to create new math rules in middle school. No, you don't create new math rules. Some things are stagnant, but human nature is soft skills. Human nature changes. You change, we change. If you look at all the things you've done in the past and look at how you can leverage them. I'm at the point now that I'm leveraging the fact that I own the Speaker Bureau. I've spent the last 40 years or so building this authenticity program, and being authentic is so important. Authenticity is more important than money. I'm gonna tell you something that's gonna blow your mind that just happened today that will speak to authenticity, because I have, and the importance of sharing your voice. I have been expanding my company. I've been working on it very hard, very diligently. I'm at the point now that I have an executive team. So I'm really turning from a single person to this whole organization. And we've been looking for investors. And we have an investor, and we're ready. They're ready to give us a proposal and to sign on the dotted line. But they added one thing in their clause of the contract. And that's that there's a zip clause to it that says, I can't say certain things. Excuse me? Now, I built my program on authenticity, so you're missing the point if you're telling me I can't be authentic with what I've spent 40 years doing. And I'm telling you, this was a multi-million-dollar investment. And I said, no, I can't do that. I wouldn't have done this program if I wasn't following my voice. It came from within me, and I was inspired. I was assignment, if you will. And many of you feel on assignment. Your life experiences help you uncover what your purpose and assignment is. But my assignment was clearly authenticity, which is what I've spent 40 years on. And you want me not to talk about how I got it? Excuse me? You're missing the point. The world needs your voice. The world needs to know what you're doing. The world needs to know what your spirit is telling you to do, what your conversations are with your, what I call unseen supporters that are guiding you and helping you along the way. You can't deny who you are. That's when you get sick. That's when you're not healthy. That's when you end up with real problems. So when I say just be authentic, I'm talking about being the person you were born to be, connecting with your gifts and talents, looking at what you've done in the past, leveraging that and taking it to another level. And keep up leveling yourself over and over again, because if you're still alive, you still can up level. You still can reach more people. You still can touch more people. So no matter what, don't stop. If you feel that this is something, what you're speaking and find a speaking career is something that you are sent here and supposed to do, don't let anything step in your way, whether it's a multi-million-dollar project or whether it's just paying the mortgage or the rent. I'm going to tell you, in my journey of 44 years of putting everything aside to doing what I need to do, I've had times when I didn't know how I was going to pay my bills or the mortgage. I had one year that I survived strictly on insurance payments. My house flooded, so I got a good payment. Somebody hit my car, I got a good payment. So if you just trust that is within you, that got you here, and that's guiding you to give a message, if you trust it and allow it to unfold, it will take care of you. Like I told my assistant this morning when I was talking to her, I was just laughing and laughing about why I said no and how I said no. And I said, because I'm not worried. Because I would not have been on a path for 40 plus years to come to where I am, to not have the energies that have supported me to get here to drop me. Okay? And that's the same for you. If you're following what your voice is telling you to do, what you need to make it happen will come to you, as long as you're true to what's being told to you. That's that inspiration. You're being inspired. You might need some people to motivate you from time to time, and that's fine. But the message is in you. The message is yours to share. It's your experience to share. I didn't get a chance to hear William, and I know Unstoppable Tracy has a dynamic story, but you all didn't let anything stop you. I can tell what I heard about seeing you and seeing Dyslexic Coach, that you've been through some challenges. Nobody escapes here without challenges, but those challenges are just the messages to make you stronger and to give you stories to talk about so you can help others. When you get to a certain age in life, Luana says that she tried to get a job, but because of her age, they didn't give it to her. You know, I wouldn't trade this age, because this is where the wisdom comes. This is where it makes sense. When you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s and even 50s, it's like, what the heck? I don't understand. Where am I going? What am I doing? But eventually you stay at it and it all makes sense. So don't give up. Don't ever give up your voice. Don't ever give up your message. Don't ever give up what was put in you to share with the world, because the world needs it, especially now with AI coming in. And it's been 50 years since computers and all have been here, and since the violence on TV show research was done. And look at how the violence on TV has changed us as a society. Look where we're at now. It could have been stopped if speakers were speaking about it then. While AI, I love it and I hate it. I love the way it takes something I wrote that I thought was my best stuff, and I put it in AI and it comes out better. Like, dang, really? But I hate the potential of what the next 50 years will bring, because I'm concerned about humanity. I'm concerned that it's taking jobs now, it's taking jobs from every sector, and it's taking jobs because it brings more money. But artificial is the opposite of authenticity. And you as a human being, you bring the authenticity. So I encourage you to use it. I'm putting in the chat box my information. I do offer
Norma, we lost your voice. We lost your voice. You went on mute.
Forgot when you do something, when you touch something, it unmutes you. Thank you. So, or mute you rather. So if you're looking for an opportunity to grow as a speaker, I offer a complimentary discovery session. I do coaching for speakers. I'm also looking for dynamic speakers who want to speak about authenticity. We're going into the corporate market, and I need some speakers for that. And I'm also certifying coaches with a brand new certification in from our authenticity assessment. We have an assessment and entire system that also can help coaches to grow their company, to be more authentic themselves, and to create more authenticity within their clients. So that's a real snapshot of what I'm all about and how I can assist you. And I would look forward to meeting with any of you, and I'm happy to take any questions you might have or comments.
I've got a question for you, Dr. Norma. When I was on LinkedIn the other day, I saw a great post from Jeff Bezos at Amazon talking about how we're not really wired for honesty. We're wired to be sociable, and that's why you really have to focus on authenticity or honesty in a corporate environment. And a lot of things that Bezos does. I'm not a huge fan, by the way. I don't want to mistake people with that, but I thought that was a really good insight, right? That people don't want to be excommunicated from the tribe. Therefore, those little white lies grow and they get bigger and bigger over time. And ultimately, when you're leading an organization, and particularly when you're trying to get authentic change seeded properly in an organization of people, getting to honest feedback is really one of the biggest challenges, I think, of implementing change. What do you think about that?
Well, I would agree with you. I did research about 3 years ago on authenticity. What's your greatest fears, challenge, and frustration? And the number one issue was being able to speak honestly, because people are afraid, as you said, to share what they truly feel for fear of being ostracized. When you said that we're not wired to be honest, I disagreed originally until you explained it a little bit more, because I feel we are wired to be honest because we're so honest as children. We're taught to do otherwise. Socialization teaches us to go along with the norm. So if the leaders, all change in an organization begins at the top. If the leaders don't change, the employees aren't going to change. I mean, sometimes it goes from bottom up, but that's a much more difficult challenge. So I think the main challenge we have is helping the leaders understand the value of authenticity and helping them to recognize their own authenticity. Workplace authenticity is a very popular theme right now in the whole industry. So, but it's just a word right now. They're not really exploring what does it really mean on a deeper side and what's the sacrifice for that. But then if we look at what the advantage is, what happens to an organization, if you look at some organizations that have become more authentic and how they allow their authenticity to go into the organization, you can see the difference. The big challenge with authenticity is that I always add to my definition of authenticity a focus on the common good, because there are people who are authentically bad, whose sense of line and social and acceptance is more important to them than the inner part. But everyone doesn't. Some people lose the inner self. So it's bringing them back to the feeling, the touching, the camaraderie that is authenticity. Put people before profit. So it's helping them understand that and helping them how authenticity leads to profit, because you have more engaged employees. You probably know the story about so many employees are not engaged at work. Oh, about 80% of them are not engaged, and therefore they leave. Therefore, the money is in retention because they got to keep bringing in new people. So if you bring it back to that financial part, then that shows them where authenticity is important. Then you just got to help them be authentic. I'd be happy to have a one-on-one conversation if you'd like to schedule.
I agree. The tragedy is that those 80% of people that are disengaged haven't left. They're just sitting there. They're not really doing what brings them joy or brings the corporation the profit. They're doing just enough to survive in those roles, and that's a very tragic perspective. And in almost every case, it has to do with a lack of authenticity from the leadership team. So I would love to talk to you. I'll book some time.
Yeah,
Great presentation, though. Thank you so much.
And I want to connect you to my corporate person, Jay Thompson, because he can go toe to toe with you on that much better than I can. I look forward to hearing from you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your questions and comments. And thank you, Dr. Norma. All right. It's time for our final speaker. So our final speaker is Chris Salem, and he is a revenue growth expert and dynamic speaker. Chris specializes in helping business owners and leaders achieve substantial revenue and business growth through his 12 proven strategies. Renowned for his impactful talks, Chris is a sought-after speaker at leading industry B2B and B2C conferences, as well as direct engagements with companies. With a focus on tangible results, Chris empowers organizations to thrive and succeed in today's competitive business landscape. So, Chris Salem, you're up.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for the warm introduction. And I would just ask anybody here that, because when I talk 10 minutes, 20 minutes can seem like 5 minutes. So if we're getting towards 2 o'clock East Coast time or 11 o'clock Pacific, just please let me know in the chat box. I'm here at Keller Williams. I just concluded doing a talk here, so I didn't have time to come back to my office. So I am here, and it is a pleasure to be serving. So what I'm going to be sharing with all of you here today, and I love to make this interactive if you like, is to talk about the power of speaking. What Brian had mentioned, when it comes to driving revenue and profit in your business, oftentimes a lot of business owners or even just business professionals in general tend to overlook the power of speaking. And this is why it's so great that we have an association like the Public Speakers Association that Brian works each and every day that, can provide resources and, connections with other speakers that can all help us to move our businesses forward through the power of speaking. So what I'm going to be sharing with you is a little bit about a revenue strategy, which is speaking. Oftentimes people don't see speaking as a revenue generator. They see speaking as, yeah, maybe I can get paid to speak. And yes, I'm going to generate revenue from that. But see, where the real revenue is not when they pay you to speak. The real revenue comes in now what you do and how you could help them, whoever's in the audience, solve a challenge and create a result. That's the game changer where you're going to generate money. The issue with a lot of times with people, especially when they are using speaking, is they're not sure, don't have a strategy in place in order to connect the dots. So this is why a lot of times you find a lot of speakers that are speaking and they're often speaking for free, or maybe they're speaking for, they're getting paid maybe a modest amount, or even perhaps maybe a decent amount. But then it ends there. There's nothing that goes above and beyond that. So they have to keep speaking and hopefully get more speaking to make enough money in order to do what they have to do. So what I'm going to share with you here today is kind of an insight of how you can use speaking as a way to not only share your story, create impact, but also drive your business to the next level. And it's just understanding a few things that you have to do in order to do that. So it starts with the first thing, a foundation. So when you think about a foundation, you think of a house, right? A house, if it's going to sustain itself over a period of time, it's got to sit on a foundation. And that foundation has got to be rock solid. And if it's not rock solid, well, guess what? It's going to have problems. You're going to be managing problems, or worst case, it's going to come crumbling down. It's the same thing in your speaking business. You have to have a foundation that you have to, take care of each and every day. And the one thing that oftentimes where speakers have a disconnect in driving revenue from their speaking is they're not very clear on how their message can really impact and help people. Now, I know a lot of people might challenge me and say, well, no, I know exactly that what I speak on, and I know exactly the impact I'm going to have on people. But I'll give you an example. Oftentimes you could have somebody who is speaking on perhaps well-being. Maybe they're a dietitian or they're a life coach, and they talk about, what are some things you could change in your lifestyle or in your diet that could help you to look better, feel better, and so on. Now, you got to ask yourself, is that really important to someone? Perhaps it is. Maybe they do want to lose weight and that's really important to them, or they do want to make certain changes. But oftentimes, if somebody was going to maybe perhaps hire you to coach them, are they going to pay a certain amount of money in order for you to do that based upon what you shared? Could, but oftentimes that's not the case, because here's why. The reason is that there is so much information out there. People can read books on certain things that they want to improve on or generate certain results. There's videos. There are so many speakers out there today. But one of the things that speakers, if we're able to truly understand what are the challenges that could be better to your audience and what are the results they seek. So I'll go back to the wellness example. You know, while somebody might want to look better and feel better, or perhaps have more energy, if I'm not able to tie that to something tangible that could be important to them, maybe perhaps they're not somewhere in their career making more money. Maybe perhaps they've been stagnant in their business and they're not generating enough revenue. Could it be that their self-esteem and confidence in the way they look could have an impact on that? Maybe. But if we're not really connecting the dots to really drive down to the challenge that could be better and to the results they seek, your story in itself is not going to be enough to now generate that interaction where it could take now that interaction to another level, where perhaps somebody could be hiring you to coach them, or an organization could be hiring you to come in and consult with their team. So what I'm going to share with you here is the importance of learning not to assume and speculate what your audience is looking for and what's important to them. Doesn't mean you have to know everything, because you won't know unless you meet them. But if we could do some research on our audience, find out, again, what are meeting planners or event organizers looking for? Are we really researching the websites to determine the themes and topics that are most important to them? Are we getting a gauge of what are some of the things that really, drive them, and so on? So with that being said, sorry about this. If it really drive them, getting this intelligence up front, when we're able to get this intelligence, will allow us to adapt what we share and what we talk about, that we can connect at a deeper level. So I'll give you an example. I can remember one time I was hired by a school district. I often work with businesses, and I speak at a lot of industry B2B and B2C conferences, but this happened to be for a school district. And there was a lot of hostility going on in their school district. There was a lot of disengagement and a lot of friction between the bus drivers and also the teachers with the administration. So there was a lot of disconnect. And they brought me in to talk about emotional intelligence, because I'm often hired to speak on that particular topic. Now, when they asked me to come in, they wanted me to use a deck. They were very adamant about me using a deck to, talk about emotional intelligence and what are some things that we could do to get better at it, and how we can learn to adapt it to communicate at a higher level, and so on. I had done some research on the school district. I did as much as I could to find out a little bit about the people that would be in that audience. Not everybody, just a few, to get an idea. Now, a lot of speakers probably wouldn't do that. I do that every time. And as a result of that, when I came into that room, I could sense the friction. I can sense it. I can feel it. I had this sensory acuity that I was able to tap into, and something I've been working on for a long time. And I knew in that moment, I wasn't going to be using a deck, that I was going to go right into interaction and coaching from start to finish. It wasn't going to be a lecture. It wasn't going to be something that we're going to go from slide to slide. We were going to meet people where they were at and get real. Now, I can remember the organizer looking at me going, "What the heck is going on?" And I looked at him and I gave him a look like it's going to be okay. And sure enough, after that hour and a half that I had to do that 90-minute session, we had breakthroughs in that room that would have never have happened if I had followed the script, so to speak, with the deck. So as a speaker, it's our jobs to do that work ahead of time, to learn how to read a room, to pick up on that energy, and to adapt to what is to make a difference and create that impact. Now, as a result of that, they could have just paid me for my time and said, thank you for coming in. This was great information. And most likely nothing would have been really solved. It would have just been like, yeah, whatever. And when it went right, people would have went right back to what they did. They saw a difference immediately in how we were able to get through to people they thought they could never get through to. And as a result of that, they hired me 3 weeks later to come work with not only the people that manage the bus drivers and also the teachers, but also at the administrative level, all the way up to the superintendent of that school district. Because if everybody wasn't involved, nothing was going to change for the better. And as a result of that, not only was I able to help, not just me that I did it itself, but help them to help themselves. But I was able to generate for that value, that exchange of value, more income through speaking, not from the speaking itself, but from what the speaking had led to in terms of business. And as speakers, if we could truly, really understand not only our stories, the impact that we give, the value that we give, but how do we really get down to what's really important to the people? If we just assume and speculate, that's where you're going to fall into the trap of speaking for either very little, for free, and then nothing ever going above and beyond that. And then you're just looking for the next opportunity. If you're truly going to make a difference, do that. Speak from the heart. A lot of the speakers here, I'm sure, have shared that. And that's what you should be doing, speaking from the heart. But knowing that you have to have a strategy ahead of time to know, can I connect the dots to the bigger picture here? I may not know everything, but if I just assume, if I'm again talking about, if I'm a dietitian and I'm a lifestyle coach, and I'm just going to talk about, if you do this with your diet and make these changes, your life's going to improve and everything's going to get better. Well, yeah, you might help some people on a certain level, but it's not going to be enough that's going to get them to say, we got to get this person to come in and talk to our team, to talk to our group, to talk to our organization. That could lead to another opportunity to speak and get paid. And better yet, be able to generate business through consulting, through coaching, whether if you have a product or service, because you start to build the rapport. There is no greater way to generate more revenue in a business than through speaking. Now, not in itself, but coupled with other things that you are, again, speaking to the challenge and to the results they seek, and dripping that through email marketing, through what you post on social media. And you're sharing, similar stories and sharing content. You're not telling people how or when or how to do it. Perhaps maybe you have a podcast and you're doing it there, or you're on other people's podcasts. The consistency of that content being leveraged over those platforms, and particularly speaking, can be a game changer in you elevating your business from wherever it is and either doubling it, tripling it, 4Xing it, whatever that may be to you. I know that speaking for me, I've been doing it for 23 years professionally, has been a game changer. And it's something that has allowed me to help so many people, one to many. And not only from the talk itself, but to really go deeper, where now I can have more a one-on-one conversation with that person or with their team or certain people in their organization, to further build that rapport and help them to help themselves do what's really important to them to accomplish. Speaking allows you to do that. But if you're just looking out there to speak and hoping that, someone's going to pay you, enormous amount of money to do that, it's not always going to be the case unless you're doing that through a keynote, for a major organization. And a lot of times that goes through speaker bureaus, or you have to be a household name in a certain industry or just in general. But you could generate so much, you could create so much value and generate so much in your business through speaking, when you can know how to do it in a way that educates, speaks to the challenge, speaks to the results they seek, and you can take your business to a whole new level. I'm going to conclude there because I know we only have 5 minutes and I want to leave some room for some questions. And if anybody would like information, would like to talk further, there's no obligation to me, but I am on I do not have my computer, so I can't type in, but my email is simple. My website, it's ChristopherSalem.com, ChristopherSalem.com. Also sustainablesuccess.net. That's my business acceleration website. Let's chat. I'd love to get to know you and about your experience in speaking. What gets you up in the morning? What are you passionate about talking about? And how can you now leverage that in a way with the right strategy that you can help more people generate results from not only your story, but getting deeper, and that can now allow you to increase your business to a whole new level. I'd love to chat with you, and again, no obligations. And I want to thank Brian and the Public Speaking Association for this platform because it provides so much value to share. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. I guess there's a lot of quietness out there. That's okay. No worries. Just to,
We're listening.
Oh, go ahead.
We're listening.
Oh, okay. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. If anybody has anything, I'd be more than happy to address, and with the time we have.
Unstoppable Tracy here.
Hi.
Hello, Christopher.
How you doing?
I'm very excited to listen to you. You're easy to listen to and engaging, and an incredible role model for all the speakers here today for us.
Oh, thank you.
And I noticed how focused you were on audience relevance as a lesson, but also how you made it audience relevant for all of us. What I found most powerful in so many of the speakers today was when people were a lot more authentic rather than teaching. And you yourself shared very specific examples. Oh, I went into a school and this is how I empowered the audience. So what's your fine balance from selling and authenticity? And
absolutely. Everything that Norma talked about is authentic. I'm very transparent. My values are, I'm not afraid to talk about my strengths, my weaknesses. I always share. Matter of fact, I was here at Keller Williams today doing a talk with their agents here in Fairfield County and talking about that I'm a recovering passive aggressive in my behavior and my communication. I struggled with 12 years of addiction. I have no problem sharing that and letting people know that I'm real and that I've had challenges and overcome them, and that I'm no different than you. I'm just somebody that really had to really learn and rise above the ashes to build his confidence. And now I can share that with the world, that they could do the same for themselves and create more in their business. We are not charities. We are here to serve. And I don't serve from a place of just, hey, I'm here to generate revenue. I serve to create value, and the revenue is a byproduct of that. But if I'm not very clear on tying that value to what's really important to that audience and what the results they seek, and I just assume that, then I'm not really helping them and I'm not helping myself. It's not a win-win. So my job is to be prepared. I have to have that foundation. I have to prepare, and then I have to execute each and every day using, again, being mindful of my body language, tonality, my words, but my body language and my tonality is more important than the words itself. And then measuring to see what's working and what's not working, and repeat.
so do you have any, so having a meaningful value that you're offering and contribution is integral. And you validated the importance of authenticity, which I think was a consistent theme throughout all the speakers for the last 2 hours, which is incredible. So I think I saw Luana when she talked about losing her son, and Vicky talking about the lessons learned from her 10-year-old, and William talking about being in elementary school with dyslexia and some of those impacts. Like when people shared their authentic moments, it was when we remembered and when we listened. And although they were personal, they created engagement and interest, and much more interest than teaching, preaching. But you have balanced being authentic and clearly super valuable to all of us. How can we reach more people as well as make a living, something important to all of us? But is there a specific language? Is there a specific question? Is there a specific there's a neuroscience out there about that inviting language to action that also leads to not just saying this is my website, but you subconsciously all the way through have invited me to want to have more of Christopher. What was that distinguished you and other very powerful people that translate a speaking event to a relationship?
Yeah, no, great question. It's the ability, if I'm live with somebody, and sometimes we could do it, on virtual, is asking questions and getting feedback, because we all learn from each other. Like if I, doing a talk, and if you're just the one talking, that's not going to help. You want to get that interaction and ask questions. And when you ask those questions, it's like you're disguising the impact you're looking to get across in the question that will stir something in their mind that is going to play to the challenge they have that could be better. Because nobody wants to admit they have a challenge or say that if you ask somebody how's things going, oh, everything's great, but that doesn't mean that they're where they want to be. It's again where disguising that in the question that can play onto the challenge that could be better and to the results they seek, and then using stories and then getting other people to share as well. And when people relate to each other in the room and say, wow, I can relate to that. Some people are going to be now looking to take action. Doesn't mean everybody. Now that can lead to maybe another speaking opportunity for you in their organization, or that can lead to them hiring you as a coach or a consultant or whatever you may do. Maybe you work for a company and you sell products and services. But it's not about your product or service. It's not about your coaching. It's about their challenge, the results they seek. You're a trusted advisor each and every time you're up there, one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many, and whatever stage that is, to generate that engagement.
All right. I think that's all we have time for. We're over time. So I want to thank everyone for being here, all of our participants, and especially our speakers. So thanks to Walt, Vicki, William, Dr. Norma Hollis, Dr. Lawana Parker, and Christopher. And watch your email, and we'll send out info on our next virtual summit, and also call for speakers. Anyone here who's interested in speaking, look for those emails and sign up to speak at our next event. So thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.